In today's video, I'm going to show you how to build a 90-day SEO plan completely from scratch using a real-life example. I'm Nathan Gotch, the founder of Gotch SEO Academy, and I've led hundreds of successful SEO campaigns for over the last decade. So let's get right into it. All right, so I always begin every SEO campaign with extracting the existing keyword profile. So you can use SEMrush or Ahrefs, doesn't make a difference. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into all of the keywords here. And this may vary depending on how large the keyword profile is. So if you're dealing with, hundreds of thousands of keywords, then yeah, you're going to have to filter through this in this current moment. But we're dealing with a very small amount of keywords here, which is just around 7,000. Okay. So I'm going to do a full export of all of these keywords, and I'll show you kind of what this looks like to get it organized. Okay. So I imported all of the data from that export. And so now we can see a couple things have already happened. So the way that my template is built, basically what happens as soon as we import this data, it immediately categorizes the opportunity in a way that I like, not compared to what the other tools do. So for me, what I like to do is I like to have these categorized based on the opportunity that these keywords present, okay? At this stage, we haven't done anything regarding intent, competition, and all kinds of other stuff. At this early stage, we're just trying to get super organized with the keywords. So what I want to do first here is, number one, I'm just going to add a quick filter. And what I want to do is basically just eliminate anything where it's just not even necessary for us to even focus on at this point. So in this case, we can just get rid of number one and just get rid of that completely. So now what that leaves us with, just keywords that are ranking from position 2 and beyond, okay? This does not mean that we're going to go after all these keywords though, all right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to start to figure out how we're going to attack this keyword set. Is focus on the topics that actually drive revenue in the business. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to text contains and I'm going to search specifically training. Okay. Because these are the keywords that really matter in my business, at least in the context of Gotch SEO Academy. Okay. So what we're going to look at here is we're going to look for keywords that are a super good fit. And so based on what I'm seeing here, we have best SEO training. Okay. So then we've got the best SEO courses dedicated page. So this is a good fit. This keyword is a good fit for this page. Therefore, I'm going to make it the primary keyword. Okay. So this is the primary keyword topic for this page. That's what we're trying to identify. And you only want to have one. Just one primary topic for that page. That's all that you should have. Okay. Once again, Denver SEO training. This is perfect. Once again, this is a primary keyword that matches this page perfectly. Okay. Now, sometimes people ask me like, okay, if we're looking at these keywords here, we'll just do in the context of Denver. Okay. We've got this keyword set here and they're all very similar. Okay. Very, very similar. Which one do you pick in this case? Well, the good news is it really doesn't matter what variant you pick because Google's likely going to help you perform well for any of these. It's really not going to matter. Okay. Because if we go and look, we could even go incognito window and see this, but I'm likely ranking well for both of these variants. Although SEMrush says it's 97, it's probably not true. Okay. So, but what I will do is I will pick the variant that has the highest search volume. So in this case, SEO Training Denver has 90 search volume. So I'm going to make that my primary keyword. It doesn't mean that's how I'm going to attack that keyword on the page. This is an important clarification. So we'll go here and I'll show you, like in the context of this, this is best SEO training in Denver. Okay. So although my primary keyword is SEO training Denver, I'm still doing it in a very natural way, right? I'm still attacking this keyword naturally so that it sounds and makes sense with the copywriting. Okay. And you can even see in the title tag, it's going to be the same thing, right? Best SEO training in Denver, right? I'm not saying SEO training Denver. Like that's just so unnatural. I would never do that. Okay. And so you don't need to do that, right? You just literally do not need to do that anymore. It doesn't make a difference. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go one by one and select all the primary keywords that matter the most to the business. And I always start with the keywords that are the closest to actually driving a real conversion. Once I get there, then I can move further up the funnel and start to select some additional keywords. But at the end of the day, I don't recommend picking any more than 50 to 100 primary keywords. If you're doing any more than that, you're probably just don't have the resources to support that level of execution. So I would just get hyper focused and just do 50 to 100. Ideally about 50, because then you can also start to focus on some secondary keywords which I'll explain what those are in a second. But first, let me select the primary keywords and I'll show you what the end result of this is. Okay, so what you can see is I already selected some primary keywords. I have about 10 so far, and these are all for keywords or topics that are either very bottom of the funnel or middle of the funnel that are very close to driving a conversion for one of the products that I sell. Okay, so either it's going to be SEO training. So that's going to, right here, best SEO training makes a lot of sense. It's going to be a content optimization software in line with rankability, or it's going to be specifically for my HVAC SEO agency. Okay, so anything that's close to those is going to be really, really important that I attack. Okay, so those are all the primary keywords. And as you can tell here, these all perfectly match the page, right? They map perfectly well to this page. It's very, very important. Okay, want to match that intent perfectly. Now, the other thing I did is while I was doing that, I was also looking for secondary keyword opportunities. So I'll show you what these look like. And this is important because when we have a perfect match for the primary keyword, that page is already good to go. But you can see I also found a bunch of keywords that were not good to go. And so usually what I'm looking at in this case is I'm looking at keywords that are not performing particularly well with that URL, because what that's telling me is that this URL is not relevant enough to rank for this keyword. And as you can tell, this makes perfect sense. Okay, so we'll look at just, this one here, best local SEO software. Okay, and the page that's ranking is a page about best SEO tools for agencies. Okay, that's just not going to do it. That page will never rank for best local SEO software. Okay, so what I do is I go assign that as a secondary keyword, which what that tells me is we need to splinter off and create a dedicated page for that topic. Okay. And so there's a lot of huge benefits to doing this. And I've proven this basically. I've lost count of how many times I've proven this to work. But the biggest reason why you want to do is, first of all, you're creating a more relevant page. As a result, you're going to rank better. Just more relevance equals better rankings. It's just a very simple formula. But from there, we're also splintering off, which means now we're creating more topic support around that other page, right? So we originally just had best SEO tools for agencies. Now we're going to splinter off, and now we're going to have best local SEO software, its own dedicated page. And now these can internally link to each other, which is going to build more support. So what I'm looking, as I go through this process, I'm looking at the primary keyword, and then I'm also at the simultaneously thinking about, okay, we've also got these other keywords that Google's telling us are closely relevant, but this page is not doing its job. Okay, so this is what we're doing in this process. And once again, we're not worried about prioritizing these. We're not doing anything like that right now. Right now, we're just trying to get our prospective keywords in place. Once those are in place, then we're going to move into the next phase of this process where we're actually going to use data to prioritize these keywords. So I just want to pause real quickly to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, digital.pr or Search Intelligence, and their digital PR agency that will help you get really high powered backlinks. And as you're going to see later on in this video, when I do the ranking diagnosis, one thing that often holds pages back from reaching their maximum potential in Google is typically just a lack of backlinks. Like, you can have one of the best pages imaginable, but if you aren't driving backlinks to that page or driving backlinks to the website as a whole and building the site authority, it's going to be very hard to achieve the best SEO results possible, because backlinks are hands down one of the most important ranking factors, not just in Google, but now there's evidence, a lot of evidence, that it does influence your awareness and performance inside of large language models like ChatGPT or Perplexity. So backlinks, once again, what's old is new, but it really never went away. Backlinks continue to be one of the most important ranking factors. So if you go to digital.pr, you can learn more about their service. But basically, just to give you the gist, they're only going to get you really, really powerful links. This is quality over quantity. And honestly, in today's SEO environment, this should be all that you're doing. Don't focus on these weak little blogs that everyone just spams to death. What they're going to do is they're going to go and get you really good links on websites that are not easy to actually get links on. And those are the types of backlinks that you want. So go to digital.pr to learn more, and I'll have a link below the video. So once you picked your primary and secondary keywords, you can see here that this is in the context of you're working with a client, but you'd go through and you would approve the primary keywords and you would approve the secondary keywords, and then the client would actually go through and approve those as the final check. So once this is all done, you're going to take this data and you want to put it into a place where now we can start to kind of rip through this and ultimately qualify and prioritize these keywords. So just for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just showing everything. And honestly, I probably wouldn't move some of these over to what I call my SEO content dashboard, but just to show you some legitimate examples and how this kind of works. Okay, so once again, this is a sheet that I personally built. This is what I use for all my campaigns. This is what's available in Gotch SEO Academy. I'm not going to go through every little detail of this, but I'll give you the high level overview of what this is like. Okay, so essentially what we've done here is we've taken all of that keyword data. As you can see, it's the exact keyword data that's from here, and we transferred it over to what I call the SEO content dashboard. And what this is there's some automation going on here that basically allows us to take all of this quantifiable data and be able to qualify these keywords and then eventually be able to prioritize them. So here's how it works. So first, we have the volume, KD, the cost per click, and the current position. Okay. All four of these metrics we already have. So what happens is it's going to come over here and it's going to assign a point score to these. So basically what we're looking at here is pretty simple. If it has higher volume, it's going to get a higher score. If it has lower KD, which is keyword difficulty in the context of SEMrush, also Ahrefs has a KD score as well, it's going to get a higher score. If it has a high CPC value, cost per click value, it's going to get a higher score because that's typically an indication that it has commercial intent and that it's going to be a more valuable keyword to go after. If the position is higher in the SERPs, like we're actually ranking well, we're going to get higher points for that, because if we're already ranking well, it's much easier to push those up a few spots than it is to start with a brand new page that doesn't have trust, doesn't have links. Okay. And then intent. If it has proper intent, you can see here, in this context, just so you know, I'm only using two types of intent just to make it as simple as possible. But basically, I'm using commercial intent and informational intent. This is an automatic intent categorization that I built in. I've got a kind of formula here that I've built. But basically what it does is as soon as this gets thrown in here, this automatically gets assigned. So the uncategorized is basically, it's just hard to identify what it actually is. And so, but for the other ones, you can tell they're very accurate. Okay, so SEO training ends up being commercial. This one, how to advertise the HVAC business, is informational. So it's very accurate. Okay, so then what happens is based on that, if it has commercial intent, it's going to get a higher score compared to informational intent, because obviously commercial intent can actually help us generate revenue. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to show you a few other ones that are very important. So you can go pretty far just by looking at the volume, the KD, the CPC, your current ranking position, the intent. That's plenty. Like, you can do really well with just those metrics. But I would highly recommend, if you're really trying to prioritize this in the best way possible, you should also consider doing the relevance score. Okay, so the relevance score is essentially how relevant is this keyword to the thing that we sell. Okay, this is very, very important, because what this does is it forces you to think about where this keyword is in what stage in the funnel and in the sales process. So I just use ChatGPT to make this as streamlined as possible. So I take all these keywords and then we go over here and you'll see, very simple prompt. We're just going to assign a relevance score based on how relevant it is to our core offer. So you basically just put in the things that you sell and then you paste your keywords in. So I modified this slightly to add the HVAC one as well. And you can see within just a few seconds, it does a very nice job of assigning relevance to the thing that we sell. And it's really accurate. Okay. So SEO training Vancouver, that's a relevance of 5 because we sell SEO training. Okay. Makes perfect sense. Go down here. We'll look at a few others like affiliate programs with recurring commissions. That only got a 2 because we don't really sell anything like that aligns with that. We have an affiliate program, but we don't really sell anything that aligns with affiliate marketing. Okay. So what I do is I go ahead and I put those in here. And as a result, we've got all these great relevance scores. Okay. So the final 2, which are very important as well, because it's going to help you determine the amount of resources that you need to actually rank for this keyword. So the first one is on the word count. So basically what I do is I copy these keywords, I go to rankability, and I go to the multiple tab here. You can paste them all in. And what I'll do is once they're all done, I've already done this ahead of time. We'll just go to clear scope alternatives, for example. And what I'll do is I'll just pull what the optimal word count is. Okay. So if the optimal word count is 2000, we're going to go over here and we're going to find the clear scope alternatives one. Let's click on this. And then in the target word count, we're just going to put 2000. Okay. And you'll see this will automatically update. So now it's a score of 3. Okay. So the way it works is very simple. If it's a lower word count requirement, then it gets a higher score. If it's a higher word count requirement, then it's going to get a lower score, because if it's a higher word count requirement, it's going to cost more money to ultimately rank for this keyword, because we're going to have to create something much more comprehensive. Okay. Now, on the lower DR score, this one is also really important because it's going to help us determine how many backlinks we're going to need to rank. Okay. So what I do is I go into Ahrefs, and this is why, unfortunately, you kind of need SEMrush and Ahrefs, or you could just use Ahrefs. It doesn't really make a difference how you slice and dice this. But basically what I do, this is the most manual part of this process, but it's so critical, because if you go after a keyword that's too competitive from a link perspective, you're going to just have to need such a big backlink budget to make any movement whatsoever. So Ahrefs has this really great lowest DR filter that's just so good for keyword qualification. So what I do is I just start with DR 30, okay? And this is in the top 5. So what this means is, are there DR 30 websites ranking in the top 5? Okay, that's what we're looking for. So we'll go ahead and apply, and then we'll show the results. So based on this, there's only one keyword in this set of keywords that has this criteria. So we'll go to SERP and we'll confirm that this is true. So based on this, it will show us that there's probably one. So right here, we can see this one. They have a DR of 12. Okay, so a DR of 12 that's ranking in the top 5. Okay, so what I did is I went back over here, and as you can see, we'll go to the lowest DR section. You'll see that I've already done all this ahead of time. So all of these keywords are within this range. Okay. So this is what we do. And I start with 30. And then I just progressively go up and up, right? So eventually I'll end up at, 90, which then will mean basically there's going to be a significant amount of keywords that fall into this category. But what that is going to tell us is that this is extremely competitive. Okay. So we can see, like on-page SEO tools, we'll look at this, and you'll see that there's probably going to be some really powerful websites that are ranking. So we've got DR 91, 79, 91, 90, and then a 46 that's popping in right here. But keep in mind, this doesn't tell the whole story, because even at a DR 46, this is a keyword-rich domain. So he has an advantage right out of the gate. So you got to be careful with, interpreting this. But most importantly, what we're trying to do at this stage is use data to our advantage so we can make really educated decisions based on the current state of our website and our authority. So one thing you'll notice here is I actually went and put red on these, because since this is for Gotch SEO has a DR 73 or 74 or something like that. So anything that is, I can actually compete on anything that's a DR 70 and below. Okay, that's like just based on the current strength of my site, that's where I can compete. Now, if we took rankability, I think rankability is only around a DR of 40. Okay, so basically I would only be able to look at keywords kind of in this range here. Right, so I wouldn't really want to go beyond that, because it's going to be too hard to probably rank. Okay, so what we're doing is we're using data to our advantage. So once this is all done, and in a normal situation we would have collected the word count, but basically on rankability we would just open each one up at a time, and then we would get the word count, and then we would put it in here. Okay, that SEO training New York performed really well. So it has low volume. Okay, but it has low KD, which is good. It has good cost per click, meaning there's actually commercial intent. It's ranking pretty decently already. It has very, very weak competition. And then, you go down the list. But the point is that's why you don't want to just rely on one metric. You want to look at all the metrics to ultimately determine what the best keywords are. Okay, so next stage in this process is we're going to perform a technical SEO audit. So this is really important because we've already done the keyword research. We've got all our keywords in order. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the site as a whole and try to figure out how to make our site just better in general. Okay. So one of the things you want to do is you can play around with all the different configurations, obviously some settings that I would recommend. So going into here, this will just help make the crawl a lot faster. So like I get rid of all this stuff. I keep the crawl behavior here, and then I basically just eliminate a lot of this. Now, this will greatly vary depending on the type of website that you're working on. But in general, most of the stuff that Screaming Frog will give you as far as the data is unnecessary in most cases. Okay. You can go to the extraction tab. Once again, I get rid of a lot of things here because I just don't really need all of this data to get a good look into the website itself. Okay. Now, after you've done that, we want to go to the API access. I highly, highly recommend doing the Google Analytics 4 API, the Google Search Console API, the PageSpeed Insights API, and the Ahrefs API. Okay, so you should be doing all of those because what that's going to do is going to give us the most comprehensive data possible. So once you've done that, just go ahead and run the crawl. All right, so once the Screaming Frog crawl is complete, you just paste all the data into a Google Sheet. I'm using a template, so I just paste it into the appropriate columns. And I've also created some conditional formatting so it will flag specific issues. Now, I can't go through each of these, just a lot, but I'll give you a high level overview of some of these. So for example, if we go to status code, we can immediately identify opportunities like 301 redirects. Okay, so most people think of 301s and don't really consider them to be a serious problem, but they're actually a symptom of many other challenges that your website might be facing. First, if the 301 redirect doesn't need to exist anymore, that's an opportunity within itself. So if it doesn't need to exist, we can just get rid of the 301 and free up resources because every time you have a 301 redirect, it's going to put a load on the server. Okay, so let's go over here. And then the next thing I want to do is look, is there data? So for example, looking at the unique in links, this is how many unique internal links are linking to that actual URL that's being 301. And as a result, it's creating a redirect chain. So it'd be much better just to link to the new page as opposed to linking to a page that's just 301 redirecting. So you can see all of these right here. We can see there's a ton of internal links, about 1,300. So that means we could technically fix about 1,300 internal links. And that can have a very nice effect just by doing that small little change. All right. Next one is we want to see, are the 301 redirects that just have no positive metrics whatsoever? Okay. So based on what we're seeing here, if we just go A through Z, we see that there is a significant amount that have no sessions whatsoever. That's to be expected in a lot of cases, but we want to keep going down this line of reasoning and look at a few other things that might indicate that maybe we should get rid of it. Okay. But based on what I'm seeing here, especially on the link front, almost all of these 301 redirects probably are going to need to stay in place with the exception of maybe these two, because these two do not have any backlinks. Okay. No referring domains. So we'll see what they look like. And it looks like this is some like wacky one, which some sort of URL parameters were attached to this. And then there's this one here. So this might be a situation where we could probably remove this 301 because it just doesn't really have any metrics. And so, but in other cases with other websites you'll find a lot that, won't have any metrics at all, right? No backlinks, no impressions, no internal links. If it has any of those characteristics, you should probably just get rid of it. Okay. So we're using the data to guide us through this process. Okay. And so then once again, we'll clear these out. Next one you want to look at would be 404s. So what we're going to do is first of all, 404s aren't bad. Okay. Let's just make that one thing clear. A 404 on its own is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a useful tool to clean up your website. However, if there's data associated with these, it is a problem. Okay. So once again, we're going to go to the internal links and we've got, 81 broken links right now. Like right now we have 81 broken links on the site that are a result of those 404 pages. So we want to find where those are and we want to go and clean those up. Okay. Next thing is we actually have 404 pages that have traffic. Okay. So we've got like 1,900 visitors that are going to dead pages. Okay. So that's a lot. And this is over the course of a year, but still, that's almost 2,000 visitors that are just going to a completely dead page. So we definitely want to fix that. And as you can imagine, at scale, that'd be a real problem. And lastly, there are referring domains. Most of these should be salvaged, right? So I would probably just find a relevant page to 301 redirect those 404 pages. So once again, we're just looking at status codes and we're already finding tons of opportunities to clean the site up before we even gotten into the content and all that other stuff. So, but once again, this is why it's so important to run these crawls and find these opportunities. Okay. Now from here, there's so much more that we can explore, but basically what we can start to do is look at some other areas that, typically I go right to when I'm looking at a technical audit. Okay. So the next one would be like the crawl depth column. And the reason is because there's usually a lot of opportunity there. So we'll make sure we're only looking at indexable content. So we'll just look at indexable content, and then we're going to go over here and we're just going to look at the crawl depth. So this is already categorized. So we'll just look at these. And what this is telling us is all of these pages are super deep into the architecture. Okay. And we've got some that are like incredibly deep into the architecture. Now, they might be, these look like paginated pages. So I would probably just exclude a lot of these. So we might just go something like this. We'll go ahead and copy this. And then what I can do is I'll just go in here and we're going to make sure to not include those. So text does not contain. We'll just get rid of that. And now we've cleaned it up a lot more, the data. All right. So now we're going to go over here and we're going to look once again, do we still have a significant amount of URLs that are very deep in the architecture? The answer is yes. We have a ton. Like we have a ton that need to be pushed up the architecture, about 291 pages that need to be further up into the architecture. And the idea is to get it no more than 3 clicks deep. Okay. No more than 3 clicks deep. So you can see these, all of these are good. All of these are not. All right. So now going back to this, the next one I'll look at is unique inlinks. This is how many internal links are hitting these pages. Okay. And in general, we want there to be as many as possible. And this can sometimes just be a symptom of like poor internal linking practices. Like we're just not putting in the effort to place those internal links. But sometimes it could actually be an indication that we don't have enough topic authority, meaning we don't have enough content to support these pages. So it could be either or, you have to investigate further. But that's what this color coding is doing is it's a signal to get you to investigate these issues a little bit more. Okay. Now, next thing I'm going to look at is trying to find pages that, just based on the data alone, we might have some opportunities to improve. Okay. So one metric I would highly be paying attention to is this GA4 engagement rate. Okay. So you can actually convert this. We'll convert this to a percentage and you'll see that this is the percentage of engagement that these pages have. So the higher it is, the better. Okay. It's the inverse of bounce rate if you used to use the old Google Analytics. Okay. And so we can see the pages that are doing very, very poorly. Okay. And so for me, the way that you can figure this out is like kind of look at the site as a whole. So what I would do is I'll look at the site like this and I'll say, okay, the average is 58% site-wide. So anything below 58% is something that we probably want to investigate and see why it's lower than the average. Okay. So that'd be from like, this whole group of pages, there's probably something going on here that needs to be improved. Okay. So once again, you're not trying to figure everything out right now. You're just using the data to guide you to find opportunities. So the next one is what I will do is I'll start to filter through the data and just find pages that are just really low performing. Okay. So you can easily just go like this and just do by blanks. And then right away, we're going to find pages that just have no traffic at all. Now on my site, I prune a lot, so there really isn't a ton, but like this one here doesn't have any traffic at all. So this is something that we would definitely want to consider. Like, why does it not have traffic? It's, it not having traffic is not always a bad thing. That could just be that it's not ranking particularly well. Okay. So we could see it's around position 10. So this just could be that this page needs to be pushed further up the search results so that way it can actually generate more traffic. Okay. So don't always draw your conclusions too quickly, but we can, ideally look at this data and make some good decisions. So one thing that I will look at, and you're not going to see this on my site, but on other sites that I work on, if I can find groups of pages that have no traffic, they have no clicks, no impressions, and they have no backlinks. Okay. If it has that criteria, it's going to get put into a bucket to be potentially either deleted, redirected, or upgraded. Okay. Because something isn't right. Like, unless it's a brand new page, if it's an old page and it has no metrics like that, it's just taking up space on the site and something needs to happen to it. So this is what you do for an audit. You're going through just line item by line item. It is It is pretty intense, but this is what it takes to really get your site in order. And I'm telling you, there's so much opportunity. Like, I'll admit, like, Gotcha SEO is pretty squared away, and there's a ton of opportunity to fix the site before I even start talking about the content side of this. So this is just the technical. Just imagine as you start to dig in, as we're about to, there's so much more that we can do. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you just a real quick example of running through the ranking diagnosis for one page. So what we would do is we go back to this group of keywords, and I would pick like my top 5, and then I would run the ranking diagnosis checklist for that top 5. That way I can figure out exactly how to improve those pages. Basically what we've done so far is we've looked very broadly. We've built our keyword database. We've prioritized our keywords. Now we looked really broadly at the technical SEO. It's really been just like a much higher level focus on the site and the strategy as a whole. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get really narrow, and we're going to start to look on a page by page basis. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get hyper focused on one page. So I just picked this page as an example, and we're going to walk through this step by step. So first things first, we're going to go to the page itself, and we're going to go to the detailed Chrome extension. So we can knock out a lot of the checkpoints here. So number 1 is the keyword in the title, is the keyword in the meta description, and is the keyword in the URL. Then we'll go to the headings and we'll see, is it in the first H1 or the only H1 on the page? And the answer is yes. So we can immediately go over here and we can mark a lot of these as a pass. Okay, so we know it's in the URL, it's in the title tag, it's in the meta description, the H1. And is it in the first H2, which we'll go ahead and check. And it is. It also pops up there. Now we probably would do a slight variant, which we have here. So that also works. And then first and last sentence. So we'll go ahead and check. And it looks like we have it in the first sentence, and we'll scroll down and we'll see if we've got it here towards the end somewhere. And we do. So this also works. Okay. So this is all pass on just like basic on-page SEO 101. Okay. Now we just want to quickly see, is the page crawlable and indexable? So go back to the detailed Chrome extension. We want to see that either it says index follow or this is completely blank. That works either way. Okay. And we know that it's indexable. So this is an automatic pass. We're good on this. And there is a self-referencing canonical tag, as you can see right here. Okay. Self-referencing. So this is the URL itself, and it canonicalizes to the actual URL. This is what you want. So we can run through the Google PageSpeed Insights tool. But we actually don't need to do this because if we open up the technical SEO dashboard, we can actually just filter, and we're going to filter to find that exact URL. So we'll go ahead and get rid of this, and we'll just find text contains. And now we can see any metrics here that could be affecting the performance of this page. Okay, so number 1, crawl depth is about 3. So we're going to go down to the technical SEO section down here, and we're going to go ahead and update that. So is it no more than 3 clicks deep into the architecture? That gets a pass. Okay, does it have 5 unique internal links? Once again, it has 10. So that is also going to be a pass. Since we're already here, we might as well look at a few things, which is the engagement rate. So we can actually go over here and see if the engagement rate is sufficient. And let's go ahead and check. And we'll see right here, does the content have an engagement rate greater than 20? Now, this is a pretty low threshold. But this is basically just to identify that it's at least good enough. Okay, so that is a pass. Now, what I was referencing was the performance score, which is right here, which is just the overall loading speed. Okay, so this one is definitely a pass. So we can go ahead and just pass that. Is it mobile friendly? Yes, we know it's mobile friendly, but if you want to, you can also run the Lighthouse test just to be sure. Is the design modern and updated? I would argue that it is. Yeah, I would argue that it is. Okay. All right. So let's go back here. And, I'm going through this pretty quickly just because I know how to do it. But once you get this rolling, it can be pretty quick going through this process. Okay, now we're going to look at the SSL certificate. You can just run that URL through. We'll look at this one here. It looks like it actually scored a 62 on mobile and a 97 on desktop. So I'm actually going to mark this as a fail on mobile. Okay, and is it easy to share on social media? Once again, let's go ahead and look. Yes, it's got little social sharing icons. So that one passes. There's no interstitial pop-ups. Is the H1 tag above the fold? Scroll back up, and you'll see it's way above the fold, which is exactly what you want. So we'll go over here, and then does it have aggressive ad placements? No. So we'll place that. Broken links, we can run this check my links plugin if you want, but it doesn't have any broken links. So we'll go ahead and pass. And then do affiliate sponsored or paid links, use no follow. There's none of that on this page. So far, so good. This is pretty much passing everything. All right, so now we're just going to run this through originality.ai and see if it has any AI that's going to pop up here. And if it does, then we're going to go ahead and mark it as a fail. And we're going to continue down this list. So is the content unique outside of the domain? You can run a copyscape check on this one. So we'll go ahead and just run that through, get that rolling. And then also now we're on to is the word count sufficient, and is the page optimized well for NLP, and does it have a good Grammarly score? This one, not super important, but you could certainly run it through just to verify that it's legit. Now, inside of the rankability software, we can run this through and you can see, we're in the word count range. We're definitely in there. And we are also above the optimal. So this would get a pass, okay? Now, keep in mind, this doesn't consider other variables like, is this actually unique? Does it actually add unique value? Does it practice information gain? Like, there's a lot of other variables we could consider. But for the most part, the word count is sufficient and it is optimized well as far as the relevance, okay? Which is how it probably got to number 5. But for it to get to number 1, we're going to have to probably go to the next level, okay? So we'll look at Copyscape and it looks like there's nothing there. So we're all good. And then we're just going to run this through Grammarly and see what it comes up with and see if there's any opportunities. Overall score is a 96. That's already really high. So yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot to do on that front. We're looking to get to a 95. And then we'll go back and check the originality.ai scan, and it's likely original. Okay, so the plagiarism probably just pulling from my site. Okay, so this is all good. So once again, we've passed all these metrics. So we're doing pretty well here. And we'll look at the SSL certificate. That also passes. So the reason you go like through this process with kind of a fine-tooth comb is because you just want to make sure you've covered all your bases, okay? Because what we're trying to find, this is a process of elimination. So now what we want to do is, does the page or content satisfy the intent? So there's a few ways we can look at this. We can just actually go into the competitors and just see, like, does our page, is it similar to what's ranking? And based on what I'm seeing, most of the pages that are ranking well are kind of like listicle alternative types of posts. Okay. So I would say, yes, it certainly does. Does the content strategy angle add unique value relative to the competitors? This is an area where I don't think that it does. I don't think that it adds unique value. I don't think that it is bringing anything particularly new to the table. So I'm actually going to give this a fail because I think this is an opportunity to improve it. Is it up to date? Yeah, it's up to date. Easy and scannable. Yeah, we could, you can quickly scan through it and get the gist of the page very quickly. Unique, high quality images, videos, break it up. Yeah, it's got a couple images. It's got, nothing, not super, media rich, but it does the job. It could be better. I'm actually going to give that a fail because I think it could be definitely better. Is it helpful? Yeah, I think it's helpful. Is it original? I'm going to give it a fail. Yeah, no. Is it accurate? Yeah, I think it's accurate. Is it safe? Yes. This is all stuff. And by the way, you could run these prompts through ChatGPT if you want. And does it demonstrate a high degree of effort? I would argue no. I would not say this is a high degree of effort. So for me, I would definitely fail those 4 marks. Okay. Now, this is more about experience. This is typically for product reviews. This actually does fall into this category because it is talking about different products. So I don't believe that firsthand experience is evident here, even though we have tried these tools. It doesn't really look like we've actually like paid for them. It looks like we just kind of went to the site and, pulled information and kind of created this curated piece of content. So I would argue that this is also a fail. Does it demonstrate in the field experience? Yeah, we'll just give it a pass. Let's see, personal, I would say no. Once again, does the content speak from the first person perspective? Not really. Honestly, it really doesn't. Not a whole lot. It doesn't say, not a lot of subjective opinions in this, which I think would make a huge difference if we were trying to improve it. And then does it produce some use of the product? Okay, once again, no, it doesn't do a very good job of that. Okay, written subject by a subject matter expert. Amber is a subject matter expert, so yes, we can say that is legitimate, and it is all prominently displayed, and this is all good here. Okay, now trustworthiness. This is just some basic stuff about contact, terms of service, all that good stuff. This is just the basics you should have. You can look in the footer. It all exists. Okay. About page, contact. You just need to have these pages. It's not going to get you any type of huge boost, if anything at all, but it's just, once again, just a check that we need to have. Is the page using correct schema markup? So we can just go over here to the schema tool and we'll actually go ahead and check and see what it looks like. So we'll run the schema tool and we'll see just does it have any basic level schema. And, it's got the organizational schema, website schema, article schema. That does the job. Yeah, for this type of blog post, this isn't really anything super comprehensive we need to run on that front. Keyword cannibalization. So this is one I was going to show you. And if you're ever trying to find keyword cannibalization, just go over here and you can run the filters through. And usually the way that I do is I always go to the title tag because typically you can find cannibalization pretty quickly just by looking there. And by the way, all this red here is a signal of duplication. So that could be a possibility, but what I'm looking for is stuff that's just real close to the main thing. So in this case, we would first search phrase and just see if there's anything here. And it looks like we have rankability for phrase affiliate program, and phrase alternative. So all three of these have different intent. So these all deserve a dedicated page. So this is not keyword cannibalization. But what we would do is we'd search something like alternatives, and we want to see if there's like an exact match of that. And in this case, there isn't, but let's say there was, that's something we'd want to go and consolidate those assets together. So really keyword cannibalization occurs when you're targeting the same exact keyword on 2 or more pages. That's just generally not a good thing. All right. Is the internal link anchor text optimized well? Okay. So we can just go right into Ahrefs and we can go to the internal link section and we can look at the internal anchors and just see how well it is optimized. And based on this, it's pretty well optimized, not incredibly, it's not over optimized, and it's not like hitting the main keywords super, super hard. It's got a nice diversity. So I would say this is a pretty good one. This is a pass. Does the page have as many internal links as the top competitor? Okay. So one way you can do this is we'll actually go here and we're going to go to the main keyword, which is phrase alternatives. We're going to click on this, and then we're going to go to the top competitor and we're going to see if they have a significant amount of internal links. And this is a really good one because sometimes you can't imagine how many internal links a competitor actually can have. So we'll go ahead and take a look and see, and we'll actually look at the top. We'll look at the top 2 and see how well they're covering it in that regard. Okay. So we'll look at internal links, and we're going to see how many internal links G2 has. It looks like they've got about 3. And we'll go here and we'll look at positional and see how many they have, and they've got about 2. Yeah, no one's using aggressive internal linking here, so we're definitely good on that front. And does the title score a 70 plus? This one's just not super important, but it is one you can certainly run if you feel like your title's a little, let's call it vanilla, a little mediocre. So we can go ahead and run this one through and just see how it does. And let's run this through. This is for a blog post. We'll make sure this is right. And we'll just run that through and see how it does. I don't expect it to do very well. So I still got a 69. So that's not bad. We're aiming for a 70. So I'll just round up on that one. That's fine. Okay. Topic authority. So does the domain have at least 5 supporting assets? Okay. This one's really important. So once again, you go back to the technical SEO dashboard and you can just look for anything that's related to it. So as I did before, I showed you the phrase. There were 3 assets related to phrase, but then we've got all these different alternatives posts, which are all related to content optimization tools. So this one, there's definitely a lot of topic support here. So there's not a whole lot we really need to do there. Now, what we want to do is definitely look at the backlink side of this. So does the domain have equivalent authority to the competitors? So go over here and we're just going to look at the overall strength of Gotch SEO. And you can see 74 DR, and there's actually a competitor here that's ranking that has a 41 DR. So we are definitely in range as far as being strong enough on the domain level. Okay. Now we want to see, does the page have enough referring domains to rank? Once again, we're going to go back here. We're going to look at Ahrefs, and we're just going to look at how many referring domains we have relative to the competitors. The top 2 competitors actually have more than we do. So I'm actually going to have to mark that as a fail. And that shows that there's an opportunity. Does the authority of the RDs align with the competitors? Well, we don't have any referring domains, so that's a fail. Does the page have enough high quality? Once again, that's a fail. And once again, that's a fail because we don't have any links. So that's a problem. Okay. So at this point, what we can do is we can review this and we can see, okay, what are the main variables that are holding this page back? Okay. So I'll go ahead and just filter this, and we're just going to look only at those that are clear fails, okay? And everything else will get filtered out. So now what we're left with is just the core things that are holding this page back. Okay, we've got about 13 things. Some are related to, user experience, loading speed. Some are related to the content itself, like the content needs to be improved. And then the third kind of component of this is just on the link building front. So just by doing this kind of comprehensive process, I was able to identify exactly what needs to change here. Now, the question is, which one should you focus on first? In my opinion, just because I tend to be more content centric, I'm going to focus more on this first and see if this gives me enough to get it rolling. At the same time, once we upgrade this page, then I'm probably also going to acquire some links to it too, just to make sure it really does what it needs to do. So this is the idea. And this is the beautiful part of doing this ranking diagnosis, because it really will reveal exactly what's holding any page back. All right. So I hope that was helpful, getting a sneak peek into some of my SEO systems. If you want access to all of my templates, SOPs, and the training for me to actually show you how to go about that entire process end to end, then I highly recommend applying for Gotch SEO Academy. We have over 95 reviews on Google. You can go and see for yourself. You can check them out. Do your research. Try to find as much as you can about this program. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, there is no other program where the person who's actually that has all the experience is actually showing up twice a week to help their students. And I actually have logged now over 400 coaching calls since 2021. And all of those coaching calls are transcribed, so you can search in our platform and find answers to any questions that you have. So you're going to get access to, like I said, all the templates, all the SOPs that over 300 SEO agencies are using right now. You're going to get access to the training. We're actually going to show you my entire SEO system, laid out each individual step of that entire process. You're also going to get access to the new SEO agency accelerator that I'm building right now. And this is going to show you how to actually scale your SEO agency. And on top of it, you're getting access to a private community. This isn't some sketchy school group. This isn't some Facebook group. This is an actual community where people are just completely focused on growing their SEO businesses and just trying to get better. Okay, that's it. There's no nonsense in there. And then, like I mentioned, it's also the coaching. So you're going to get twice a week coaching with me personally. And the calls typically have 35 to 40 people on the calls, but everyone's super respectful, and we don't stop until we get your questions answered. We actually had a call last week that went 2 hours. And so that can happen sometimes. They're not always that long, but that's because sometimes, these conversations get super intense, and we want to make sure we answer everyone's calls. So I'll have a link below the video where you can go and apply. The April cohort does end at the end of the month. So we open it up for typically about 3 weeks, and then we close it, and then we open it up again. So you'll have to wait to join. So I highly recommend jumping into this cohort. And this may not always be the case. You might close for longer, because it's no secret that I am running a couple other businesses. So we might just shut it down, and then I don't know when it'll reopen. But for now, it is open. So take advantage of it, apply below, and I look forward to reading your application. Thank you.